I'm Rimma Boshernitsan, the founder and CEO of Dialogue. Welcome to 10 by 20, a series of 10 questions discussed in 20-minute dialogues with local and international leaders doing visionary work at the intersection of people, technology, and society. Welcome, everyone. Today we have Clare Race, the Chief Innovation and Product Officer at Lee Hecht Harrison. Welcome, Clare.
Hi, Rimma. How are you today?
Doing well. Very excited about the sunshine outside here in San Francisco. And how are things in Ireland?
The sun is also shining here for a change, so I'm definitely welcoming that after a quite wet start to the spring.
That's awesome. So as you know, we're going to do about 20 minutes together. We'll be in conversation for 15, and then we'll do a rapid fire for 5 minutes. That's a very long rapid fire, but let's see how it goes. But I wanted to kick us off, as we always do, around some questions around your childhood and how you grew up. What would you say has been most influential in your work?
Yeah, love this question. So I grew up here in Ireland. I've lived all over the world, but most recently have returned to Ireland. And growing up alongside raising my two brothers and me, my parents also fostered kids. So almost 20 kids over about a 7 or 8 year period. And this definitely nurtured my interest in human behavior and spurred me on to study psychology. Later, I then specialized in organizational psychology, and a lot of my work has been about figuring out what makes people tick in the workplace. But I can definitely trace it all back to this early childhood experience of being surrounded by all these different kids from different backgrounds.
That's amazing. 20 kids. And so over the course of your entire childhood, let's say the first 20 years of your life, you've had so many different siblings, it sounds like, right?
Yeah, which was a lot of fun, as you can imagine, growing up. And it was probably only later that I realized what impact it had on me and my interests, which I'm incredibly grateful for.
Yeah, absolutely. And what big questions do you think that's brought into how you think about your work right now?
I think a lot of it is to do with, we don't choose, a lot of us don't choose the situation that we're born into. And often that can set us on a direction or a path that it feels like we have little control over. But I'm definitely of the view that we have an awful lot more control over the outcome of our life than we maybe think we do. And a lot of that's down to how we use our mind and how we choose to react to certain situations.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it also brings about a certain type of resilience, right, that you have as you think about making change in organizations, but also making change in life, especially as we go through what we've just gone through over the past year and change, and how that affects us as a society and as individuals living in that society.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And adaptability as well. I think that's a big part of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. What would you say are your favorite parts of the work that you do? What do you enjoy the most?
So I would, gosh, there's so much. I mean, I feel like the work that I do in helping organizations and helping people get more out of their experience of work is one of the best jobs in the world. I think it's such a privilege when you think about how much time people spend at work, to be invited in to support people through that and help make it a better experience. I just think like it's awesome. My favorite parts, I suppose, of that would be working with the team to think of new and different and creative ways to help people at work. And then I think just probably the sheer variety of clients that we work with. I sometimes think that, I would struggle to work with just one organization. I love the variety, and no two days are the same. So that's a big part of it for me as well.
No, absolutely. And you were saying something around inspiring and enabling others to do their most creative work. And what about you? When do you do your most creative and innovative work?
Yeah, I mean, this has been kind of tested a little bit in the past year. I think a lot of it has to do with the environment. So I find being near nature is really critical to me. Often I have my best ideas after I've had a walk on the beach near my home or after riding my horse. So the last year has been great for all of that stuff. But at the same time, I am one of those people who needs other people to bounce ideas off. And there's a concept in psychology that I love called burstiness. And it describes those environments where an idea starts small and it's a bit like a jazz improv session where one person plays a note and it sparks someone else to riff on that note, and then another and another, and before you know it, you've created this amazing thing. And I think idea generation and creativity is very much like that. And yeah, in this past year, it's been difficult to create that environment with my team, and I've certainly missed it.
But it sounds like you have a great process around inspiring creativity within yourself, and that allows you to lead creatively as well.
Yeah, I mean, I often think, in leading innovation teams, and people often ask me like, what is the secret to it? And I do think that a lot of it is about having a good process to, create space for creativity and innovation. And it's not necessarily just about getting a bunch of smart people in a room and expecting the ideas to flow. You need to have the process as well.
Yeah. Can you share a bit more about maybe one process that you really love using in your work?
Well, I mean, I kind of touched on it a little bit with that burstiness piece, and I think processes that can help create that. And it's not necessarily about just like I sometimes have a love-hate relationship with brainstorming, and when people get in a room and it's let's all have a brainstorm, I think that can actually sometimes be counter to the creative process, because what you tend to find is that one person will dominate, or there'll be people sitting there that think their ideas are not good enough. But if you create that sort of space where, let's just riff on a subject, let's not try and come up with a great idea, that and it can actually get you to the end point. So it's all of the things that go around that, and also making sure that you have an environment where people feel safe just to riff on a subject and feel that no suggestion or no idea is going to be ridiculed or shot down.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it sounds like that opportunity to create human connection is really the key piece to producing innovative and creative opportunities for both the team and for yourself.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, we've been through so much this year, as I mentioned, and I know we chatted about this a bit earlier. I'm curious, like, what have you seen are some of the major shifts that your industry has been making? Obviously, you're working straight in future of work space, right? You're constantly thinking about organizational change and human connection in the context of that change, but also how people discover new opportunities, how they move through transformation in a way that could be the word that comes to mind isn't the right word, but that could really serve them well. I'm curious, what have you seen over the past year and a half that's been different to previous years in your field?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think one of the big things is that in the last year and a bit, we've all been asking big questions about work and life and how the two things intersect, and where work happens and what it looks like and its value and its meaning in the broader context of our lives. And I think, working in my industry, which is all about helping people at work and helping people perform at work and get the most out of their work, that has really played a part. So, even thinking about like where work happens, do we need to be in a workplace? Some of the things we've already talked about. To what extent do we need to be together to innovate and to be creative? How much of that can be replicated virtually? But I think there's also been a real shift in the recognition that people at work don't exist in a vacuum. They bring with them a whole bunch of other personal situations and life circumstances, and as organizations, we have a responsibility to also be, considering some of that and creating an environment where all of that can exist for them. So that, to me, that's been a real positive of this. I think as well, there's been greater collaboration amongst some of the different parts of our industry, and I would love to see more of that. So, for example, in previous times, sometimes it can be a case where the people responsible for business strategy don't necessarily talk to the people who are responsible for hiring, and don't necessarily talk to the people who are responsible for talent development, and so on and so forth. And I've definitely seen a lot more of that integration in the last year, and almost an appetite for organizations like LHH to be providing a more integrated solution to clients. And I think that definitely has been propelled by COVID.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, one of the biggest things that I feel my clients talk to us about is burnout. And it's like a classic question that I think has been on everyone's minds for at least 40 years plus, right? But I think in this day and age, it's been so present for everyone, and its effect on mental health and well-being in general. What are you finding, both in terms of leading with your team, and at the same time kind of thinking about how LHH can better serve their clients? What are you finding is just is alive for you right now around this topic, and how it kind of plays into how we think about work in the future?
Yeah, well, there's, I mean, lots of things. I think there's definitely something about the intersection between, people's physical health and emotional health and mental health. And again, recognizing that we maybe need to take a more holistic view of that. So if you think about, the organizational response, a lot of the time it's about, well, how do we care for people who are maybe physically ill, or they have, they need to have some time off work for that, but there hasn't always been the same, I suppose, recognition for, well, actually, maybe this person is close to burnout and we need to put some support around them. So again, I think this crisis has been quite good at illuminating, the role and the responsibility that organizations have.
Mm-hmm.
The other piece for me, which is a subject really close to my own heart, is I think the pandemic's been fantastic at shining the light on leadership and the need for our leaders to have those skills like emotional intelligence and empathy and humility in abundance. And we've known this, and certainly as a psychologist, this is something we've known for many years. But I think the business world has now woken up to the fact that if you don't have a leader who has got all of those skills and knows how to use them during a crisis like this, they're probably going to fail. So we've definitely seen huge increase in the I suppose the demand for those types of skills and skill development in our client organizations, which can only be a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, having awareness around what's happening around you is just the first beginning to recognize the thing and how you can lead better through it.
Exactly.
So I want to take us in the last couple of minutes through rapid fire questions. And so just to bring us back to our original 10 by 20. But I want to know, like, when do you feel most connected to others?
I would say it's when I'm in an environment where there's a clear vision, a direction on how to achieve it. Everyone knows what they're doing and is clear about the contribution that they can make, and when people can have fun with their work. And I often think those environments, you can almost hear the team hum. And I always strive to work in teams like that and create it for the teams I've led.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sounds like a lot of good energy and a lot of good vibration together is really kind of, you can feel it. Yeah. What intersection of subjects are most current for you, like most interesting for you right now?
Some of this we've already talked about. So I think that the intersection between understanding the impact of people's physical well-being on their mental well-being, and then how that plays through in the workplace. I also think as a psychologist, I'm excited to see greater intersection between the different fields of psychology, which hasn't always been the case. So whether that's clinical and organizational, or organizational and educational. So yeah, more of that is needed and exciting to see.
What is your greatest regret?
I have to say, I don't have one big regret. I'm definitely one of those people that has the view that you learn from everything. But I guess the minor regrets I've had have definitely been in situations where I hesitated and didn't do something. So maybe a trip I didn't take, a house I didn't buy, a career risk I didn't take. So I now try and live by the mantra of saying yes and then finding a way to make it work.
We're very similar in many ways. What's the one thing that you'd want to pass down to the next generation?
Oh goodness, that's a big one. That's not a rapid fire question. I think it's probably, something that's sort of carried throughout my whole career is this idea that we can go through, we're at such risk of going through life in autopilot, and whether that's in our relationships, at work, in everyday interactions, we fall back on patterns of thought that we often have no control over, and yet we could have so much more control and greater impact on how our life is if we could just use our brains more effectively. And that's something I'd love to see, that the next generation maybe gets right a bit better than we have.
And my last question is, where are you happiest?
Oh my goodness. Probably on the back of a horse.
Mm. I love that.
So yeah, in kind of like a, outside of work situation, and then in a work situation, it's probably in one of those bursty moments where you can see an idea take off, and it's a wonderful thing to behold.
Yeah, totally. Well, thank you so much, Mary Claire. It's been great to talk to you.
Thank you, Rimma. The time's gone so quickly. I can't believe we're up already.